Before we begin, a note of intention. This episode covers some extraordinary claims involving non-speaking autistic individuals. But let's be clear, these are human beings, individuals who, along with their families, often face enormous daily challenges. This is not about sensationalism. This is not about portraying anyone as supernatural. It's about listening carefully and with respect. Our goal here is to highlight stories that might reflect untapped human potential, not just in a few, but in all of us. And more than anything, this is about honoring the children and families whose courage, patience, and openness have made these accounts possible. Across the world, something deeply unexpected is emerging. Non-speaking autistic individuals, long misunderstood, are demonstrating remarkable abilities that challenge the boundaries of science, language, and cognition. These are not just stories of communication through spelling. These are accounts of real-time telepathy, of extrasensory perception, and access to knowledge with no clear origin. Some children are responding to unspoken thoughts, others are demonstrating comprehension of ancient languages they were never taught, and concepts they were never formally introduced to. And in more than a few cases, they describe another place, a realm they call the Hill, a place of learning, meeting, and sharing. What you're about to hear is drawn from filmed accounts, scientific testing, and the direct words of the children themselves. Today, we will be diving into the telepathy tapes. My name is Zane, and you're listening to the Skyburst podcast. Documentary filmmaker Kai Dickens began chronicling a series of accounts that had until then remained largely hidden from public view. Through interviews and film sessions with families around the United States, she recorded something remarkable. Children who had never spoken aloud, often presumed to lack complex cognition, were spelling coherent and at times deeply philosophical reflections. A phrase emerged repeatedly in the early communications: I can hear thoughts. The following excerpt comes from a recent interview with Kai Dickens on the Joe Rogan Experience, where she discusses how these accounts first began to surface.
After I heard the interview with Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, I Zoomed with her, and then I asked if I could go see her and meet her and talk about this a bit, because I thought this could be the next project. And I just knew it was going to be the next project, right? So one of the first things I had her do was I was like, can you just tell me about some of the emails that come in from parents? And I had her just kind of go through reading some emails from parents. And it was one after the other. Like, I didn't believe this, and I didn't believe my wife, or I didn't believe my husband that this could be possible, but we've tested it. People were sending tests. And I thought, okay, whatever is going on here, these parents don't know that any other parents are going through this. They think a singular miracle is happening in their home, that this child can read their thoughts. And that this is where the story is, that there's so many parents who haven't been listened to. And so I really thought this was about parents at first, and then discovered, no, there's been teachers writing about this for 30 years, capturing it, videotaping this phenomenon going on, and scared to come out about it. And I think same with the families, right? I mean, what a weird thing to say, this child can read my mind, or this child seems to be able to do X, Y, Z, things that seem impossible.
The implications of these communications are as profound as they are unsettling. These children were not unaware. They were not incapable. They were simply not heard until now. Across dozens of documented sessions, children typed responses to unspoken thoughts, demonstrated knowledge of private events, and exhibited accuracy well beyond chance.
Dr. Powell's primary subjects are non-speakers who are usually diagnosed with autism. Her subjects to date communicate by pointing to a letterboard or typing into an iPad or some sort of other speaking device. She explained doing experiments with some of these non-speakers where she'll put them in a room and put the parent or teacher or whoever they're telepathic with in another room or on the other side of a partition. Then Dr. Powell will generate random numbers or random pictures, and the non-speaker will try to type out what they believe the parent or their teacher or whoever is looking at from the other side of the room. And here's the host, Suzanne Scully, asking her how accurate the children were.
And if the time that they are correct is statistically significant.
Oh, it's like over 95%.
Over 95% of the time?
Yes.
In case after case, the children began describing a place, not metaphorically, but with spatial, sensory, and emotional specificity. They call it the hill. It is described variously as a school or a sanctuary or realm of light. Here, they say they learn, they encounter other children and sometimes other intelligences, other beings. In the following segment, Josiah, one of the children featured in the series, spells his account of what he sees there.
He goes on to tell me about these classes that he's taking in heaven. And that is very peculiar because he's talking about how he is sitting at a classroom table, and a lot of times it's like shaped like a triangle. And there are these different kids that are at the triangle desk and they're discussing these ideas. And it reminds me of what later you would hear is like the hill, or where they're getting like this information and exchange of ideas between each other. He wrote, "Class in Heaven spans the most brilliant minds that ever lived." And then he goes on to say, "It's quite a sight to see the daily workers do what they did on earth. Scientists, chemists, carpenters, kings, lofty, rich ideas are kissing their mind." And he said, "Picture this school in eternity."
One of the few scientists to rigorously investigate these cases is Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell. She is a board certified psychiatrist, a former faculty member at the Harvard Medical School, and trained at Johns Hopkins. Dr. Powell has spent over a decade studying the cognitive profiles of non speaking autistic individuals, particularly those exhibiting apparent extrasensory perception. In one pivotal trial, a non speaking girl named Haley accurately typed over 150 random numbers without any visible or audible cue. This was not intuition. It was a repeatable performance recorded on film.
But I would say that one of the most impressive was this girl named Haley, who was somebody that she literally did 6 different sessions, each 2 hours long, with 2 separate therapists, where we had a barrier between them, a visual barrier between her and the therapist. And she loved numbers. And so, and she didn't like it to be just, simple numbers. And so what I would do is I took a random number generator and I created random numbers like, 5, 6, digits, different, anything between, you know, 0 and, 10 million kind of thing. And then whatever numbers came up, and then I would come up with an operation between them. I'd, either be multiplying them or dividing them or finding a cube root or whatever, but those numbers. And then I would ask her to give me all the numbers that are part of the equation. Okay, so what is the equation in the first place? And then she'd point to all the numbers, and what is the operation?
When you say she would give you all the numbers, this is without seeing the numbers. This is completely across the room.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But the therapist would be thinking of, the therapist would be looking at the mathematical equation I gave her, and let's say, it was, 1574 times, 302. Okay. And so she would say those 2 numbers. She would also choose that it was times, because she had the,
Wow.
on her stencil board, she had, the thing for those kinds of operations. And then I'd say, and what does that, and the therapist said, what does that equal? And then she would give you the correct answer. And so if you add up, if you just treat all of those individual digits, both of the numbers that were part of the, the mathematical operation and the numbers that were the answer, I tested her for, it was 162, it was 162 numbers, and she got all but 7 correct, and the 7 mistakes she made, she got on the second try. All in a all in a matter of, gosh, 15 minutes maybe.
Perhaps one of the most provocative aspects of the telepathy tapes is the emergence of linguistic knowledge in children who have never been exposed to certain languages in any formal setting. There are documented cases where non-speaking autistic children typed coherent phrases in Latin, Aramaic, and other ancient or obscure dialects. In each case, their families had no prior knowledge of the language. In many instances, the children appeared to recognize symbols, syntax, and vocabulary from cultures and eras far removed from their own. It raises difficult questions. Where is this information coming from? How is it being accessed? Are these linguistic memories carried within consciousness itself, beyond brain, beyond time? The hill, as described, is populated. Children recount contact with beings, sometimes luminous, sometimes ambiguous. Some are perceived as guides or educators, others simply as not from here. The consistency of these narratives across children with no contact is difficult to dismiss. What you're about to hear are their own spelled words.
My capabilities are vast and currently undefinable. I belong to the energy group of non-speaking souls working between dimensions. I descend and accept what is referred to as three-dimensional linear thought, yet I struggle with its limitations and restrictions. Matching specific frequencies allows me to access information and to transfer thought forms. Blending energy with me is the best way to share glimpses of my multidimensional perspective. Frequency adjustment is the key to interacting with them. Currently, most humans do not have free access as we do. Each frequency is attuned to love.
When asked to explain their purpose of their experiences, the children often deliver answers that are both direct and profound. To help humans remember, to protect Earth, to shift awareness. These aren't abstractions, these are typed communications captured in real time. In the next clip, 4 children, Sammy, Jack, Alex D, and Rose, articulate what they believe is unfolding.
First, I want to introduce Sammy. She's 25 years old and lives in Carmel, California with her family. And my first question for the spellers was this: now that the audience has digested everything presented in the telepathy tapes, what should they do with this information? What does it all mean?
Think of us as a ripple in the waters. First, we shatter reality for our parents in particular. Then we shatter reality for the schools, the teachers, the therapists. Many still can't believe their eyes because you've become so accustomed to the phrase seeing is believing and thinking that science has to prove it before it can be seen as real. This is mind tricks that keeps many locked in the dark.
I also asked how society should change to meet this moment.
The stark truth is that you are more than the mind, more than the body. Awaken the collective spirit again to the true magnificence of who you are.
Next, I want to present the responses pulled together by Dr. Andrea Lambuti, showcasing some of the thoughts of the autists that she works with. This first one is from Alex D.
A love to this podcast. Acknowledging that this is real is not easy for many. Always thinking outside our experience is hard. This is our world, but it is hard to explain in a way neurotypicals can conceptualize. It is more than another language, it is another different opportunity of existence. At the most basic level of explaining, it is like running different entire operating systems. All love to those in heart who try to understand. All my energy feels like this is a big moment.
And here's Joe, who piggybacks on Alex. His words were recorded by his mom.
I want to say that even though I think it is overwhelming to explain, I am glad people are open to learning. I get nervous that with this, I will not be understood. Telepathy is a loaded word. Maybe it is the best way for neurotypicals to understand, but it is bigger than that. Alex said it perfectly. It is a totally different type of thought and existence.
Rose will be next, and she asked if I could read her words. Quote, I am too overwhelmed by happiness that people believe this is real. It is all real. Knowing that people are listening gives me hope that we can be truly seen. This is all that matters to me.
Many of these individuals spent years institutionalized, deprived of education, language access, or belief in their intelligence. But when finally given a keyboard or a letterboard, one child spelt this: I am in here. I hear you. I am waiting. This message delivered from a care facility underscores the cost of our assumptions.
Residential home for adults who have learning difficulties. I am imprisoned here until society changes its mind about who I am. I'm aware of thousands of people like me who are non-speaking adults lost in the care system. If society could start to accept that we are not under-functioning but ultra-functioning, and can see our physical disabilities as a symptom of our grey matter functioning excessively well rather than not functioning at all, we might start to get somewhere. Let us lead you.
Behind every story in these tapes is a family who never gave up, parents who were told to move on, to institutionalize, to stop expecting anything meaningful. Instead, they chose to believe, to try, to listen. In this clip, we'll hear directly from families, their frustrations, their breakthroughs, and what it felt like to finally hear the voice they always knew was there.
This email is from a medical doctor. He wrote, "As much as I have been trained to think otherwise, I believe that I am the guardian of a non-speaking autistic child who I had thought was a savant, but now it is inescapable to believe that he can easily read my mind. He can write down any number of words of which I am thinking, as insane as that sounds. Please call me."
She took me through an array of emails.
We have made her multiple tests, and he would answer correctly every time. Then I made up a number in my head, and she wrote it. He was writing the answers from my thoughts. She can read other people's minds besides me. Looking forward to hearing from you. Take care.
What surprised me was that all of these people from various corners of the world were all saying a version of the same thing. They had a child diagnosed with non-speaking autism. Doctors and/or educators had told the parents their children would never communicate or perceive the world beyond the level of a toddler. However, through a leap of faith or a twist of fate, these parents discovered their kids were in there. And in these cases, the kids learned to communicate via an iPad or a letterboard. And once the kids were communicating, the parents discovered through various means their children could read their minds. And they would test this unbelievable assertion over and over again, only to find that it was true. Many of these parents were not believed and felt alone, and they all had the same concerns. They had concerns about educating their children. They didn't know how to hide birthday presents or candy without it being found. They didn't know how to protect their private conversations or thoughts. And what touched me the most is these parents were grappling with something that they believed to be absolutely impossible. But here they were. They were watching something unfold that had no rational explanation. And they literally had nowhere to turn but this email inbox.
So this is an email that I received from Sophia, and this is her first contact with me. "Hi, Dr. Powell. I am from Mexico. I have a cousin, Mia. She is 12. She can't talk and didn't communicate with us before. Recently, she got an iPad and started typing things. We thought she could read books in seconds and had photographic memory. My aunt read her some paragraphs and she could finish the sentence or said on what page it was. And this may sound silly, but she is reading my aunt's mind. We have made her multiple tests, not professionally, and that's what she really does. Just her mom's mind, so far no one else's. We don't know what to do now."
In several documented cases, the phenomenon doesn't appear in isolation. It appears between siblings, between parent and child, or even between two unrelated individuals who seem attuned. Some researchers are calling it telepathic pairing, a kind of resonance where information flows, not through speech, but through intent. In one striking case, two non-speaking children who had never met were placed in the same room. One began to spell answers before the questions were even asked. And what's more, the other child acknowledged it with a smile, a moment of silent mutual recognition. If this were just one or two children, we could dismiss it as coincidence. But it's not. Over the course of multiple filmed sessions led by independent researchers and family teams, non-speaking children typed hundreds of responses to randomized stimuli. When analyzed, the results don't just defy chance. They suggest a form of cognition and perception we don't yet understand. Dr. Powell's datasets, along with observational footage from the telepathy tapes, reveal statistical anomalies with no conventional explanation. What makes these accounts even more difficult to dismiss is that they're not isolated to one region, one religion, or one cultural lens. From Brazil to Belgium, from California to rural India, Children with no exposure to one another are describing similar experiences. They speak of other realms. They describe the same presence of light-filled beings. They refer to receiving lessons or missions from a place beyond our world. Even more curiously, many use near-identical symbols and metaphors, despite language and cultural gaps. Another repeated theme is sensory overlap. Some children describe seeing sounds or hearing colors. Others report that when someone near them feels pain, they feel it too, not emotionally, literally. In a condition science refers to as synesthesia, but in these children it seems to extend beyond normal boundaries. Some call it merged awareness. Could this be a side effect of heightened perception, or is it a gateway into collective experience, the kind mystics had described for centuries? One of the more and sometimes controversial elements in these messages is the claim that some of the guidance these children receive doesn't come from this world. They describe it as coming from beyond the veil, from beings who speak not in words but in impressions, sometimes protectors, sometimes teachers. They speak of downloads, of instruction, and in some case, even warnings. It's here that the boundary between neuroscience and metaphysics begins to blur. One of the more unusual patterns in these sessions is the repeated appearance of specific symbols, geometric shapes, repeating glyphs, diagrams the children draw or describe that resemble ancient iconography. Some match alchemical symbols, others align with mandalas, crop circle patterns, or even forgotten scripts. And yet these children have never seen them. They aren't being coached. So where are they accessing this information from? And why do so many draw or describe the same things, even across oceans? For every breakthrough moment in the telepathy tapes, there are years of silence behind it. Years of frustration, of misdiagnosis, of being told your child may never understand you. Worse, that they couldn't even think at all. Many of these families were told to give up, to medicate, to institutionalize. And yet, those same children are now spelling thoughts that are poetic, articulate, and sometimes painfully self-aware. So what do we do with this? If even part of what's being documented is real, it changes everything. Not just how we define intelligence, not just how we treat non-speaking individuals, but how we understand consciousness itself. Are we glimpsing a deeper architecture of the human mind, a blueprint that's been there all along, buried under noise, expectation, or neurological difference? The telepathy tapes don't claim to have the answers, but they force us to ask better questions. For all the mystery in these tapes, there's one message that rises above the rest. It's not about psychic ability or even extraordinary knowledge. It's about love. Deep, unwavering, transformative love. On one episode, Jackson tells us that love is the answer. Anthony, whose insights often seem to come from another realm, types, "Love is the highest human power." He adds, "Kindness is the best way to evolve." Kai Dickens, reflecting on her interviews with scientists and families, shares the more people feel love, the better they do. And Houston, whose spiritual clarity cuts through every message, writes, "My job on earth is to make all the earth hear that God is love." What these children are showing us might go far beyond telepathy. It might be about what's possible when we slow down enough to hear each other, when we lead with compassion, when we choose to believe in connection. I encourage you to watch the full recordings of the telepathy tapes, unfiltered, raw, and profoundly moving. The link is in the episode description below. And if this episode moved you, please like, subscribe, and share it. It truly helps us keep going. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What do you think is happening here? Is this the emergence of a hidden ability, a new understanding of consciousness, or something we've just forgotten? Drop your comments. I read them all. This is the Skyburst podcast. Until next time, cheers.